We are now happy to be joined by friend of mine and friend of the program, Annaliese Kehm of women's rowing at Notre Dame University. Annaliese, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me finally. I've been waiting for this moment.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The post we posted got a lot of love too. So you got a lot of people who are excited to hear you on the show.
My friends are quite the support staff.
Yes. So we're going to jump right into the interview. So obviously you're a part of the women's rowing team over at Notre Dame. So I wanted to ask, rowing's kind of a sport that, a lot of people may not have seen it before, on television or be so familiar with it. Tell me how you originally got into rowing and, where did you start off? What drew you to that?
Yeah, so in high school, I played a lot of sports, and growing up, I played a lot of sports, and I spent a lot of time around the water, and I loved to swim, and I worked at our local pool. Um, but then I started specializing in high school, and I was mostly just playing soccer and basketball year round. And then after freshman year, I decided soccer really wasn't my thing. I am not the best runner, so it wasn't exactly my sport of choice. And my mom told me that I had to choose and I had to find something to replace it with, and something to keep me busy, keep me in shape, maybe something I eventually love. And she told me I could either try out water polo, I could try out rowing. And um, so I had a friend in high school who was 2 years older than me, and she went to Ramapo High School, and she was rowing for City Island. And we met through mutual friends, and our parents, I think they met on the train, and they got to talking about how both of us were really tall. I'm 5'11" for reference, and I think she's either 5'11" or 6 foot, and how we both played basketball and we really liked to be athletic and play sports. And her mom was like, your daughter should really try this rowing thing. I think she would really enjoy it. So we got the information on what team she was from, and I went to the Learn to Row, which is basically like an introductory month of practices where you learn the basics and you spend time on the water and you really get to see the fun stuff that rowing's all about. And I loved it and never looked back.
Nice. That's a great little story there.
Right?
So rowing obviously wasn't offered at your high school. So was it difficult to find, somewhere that was that you were able to compete? You said your friend was a part of this program, and tell me where that was located. But what was it like having to, commute to somewhere else, not, rowing for school and stuff like that?
Yeah. So in high school, I rowed for City Island Rowing, which is located in the Bronx on City Island. It's not really that popular of a place. If you're into seafood, that's where people mostly go for it when you're in the city. Um, and it's quite a drive. It's only 16 miles from us in Glen Rock, but it would, on a good day, be an hour and 15 minutes of a drive too, and probably 2 hours home. And then you factor in driving on a Friday night during rush hour across the George Washington Bridge on the Cross Bronx. So it was quite the hike. But in North Jersey by us, there aren't that many club teams. There's a lot of high school teams, but if you don't go to school there, then you can't be a part of the team. But in other
Right.
areas of the country, like New York and South Jersey and California, there's teams everywhere. So a lot of my friends who I've met through rowing have really easy access to the sport, which I think is an amazing thing. It's just where we are, there wasn't really a team where you could join if you didn't go to that high school. So City Island was the closest technically option for me. And I mean, yeah, it was commute, but I loved it. It was the best part of my day. And when I was getting driven by my dad, I got to take naps. So it all worked out.
So yeah, so I mean, did it ever turn you off from it that you knew you had to drive so far for? And you said your dad drove you. Was that like ever something that was, difficult for you and your family, that you were, this commute? How many times a week was it?
Yeah, so it was a lot. And there were a lot of days where it was just something that I didn't really want to do. And with every athlete, there are some days where you're like, I'm so tired. I don't want to do this drive right now. It's so much. I would rather, I don't know, go hang out with my friends, go to a football game, do something else like you do in high school. But um, yeah, my dad and I spent a lot of time in the car together. And looking back now, it was definitely a bonding experience for us, and we enjoyed it and we chatted, and I learned a lot from him in that time, and it was a great time to spend with him because nowadays life is so busy and I have two younger brothers and everybody's all over the place. But it was a lot, and I'm very thankful that he was working from home at the time, so he was able to drive me, or else I probably wouldn't have been able to row for this team because there would have been no way for me to get there. I didn't have a license, and Ubering every day would have been way too expensive. So I'm very, very thankful that he was working from home at the time, and this was an option for me, because it was every day after school, 5 times a week. It was Saturday mornings, occasionally a Sunday, and I'd be there in the morning. I'd leave my house at 4 a.m. I'd drive to 5 a.m. practice. I'd practice from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. But I would ask my coach, I would say to him, I'd be like, school starts at 7:50 and I won't make it back in time. Can I get off the dock at 6:45, 6:50 and run to my car so I can maybe get to school right as the bell rings? And he was awesome, and he made exceptions for me. And knowing how far my commute was and knowing that rowing was a priority, but at some point I have to go to school.
Of course.
So yeah, it was a lot, but there was a lot of moving pieces and there are a lot of people that helped me. So in the end, it all worked out, you know?
Yeah, of course. And it's like a lot of people don't realize in high school, a lot of these athletes, it's not just the athlete that needs to be committed. It's sometimes the whole family, and every person, who, excels in sports and goes on to play at a higher level always talks about sacrifices that you need to make. And it's just like, obviously some people have a hard time getting to want to go to practice in their backyard, and you were driving 2 hours a day, which is pretty crazy. So looking back, I'm sure like that's obviously something that, is that you're going to look back on and be like, damn, that was like something that I had to do every day. That was kind of crazy,
It's wild, but I'm better for it. I can drive really well now.
Nice.
I know the Cross Bronx like the back of my hand.
Hey, it obviously paid off. Rowing got you somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Right. So it ended up being all worth it. So, Olympic time, which is right now, is one of the times rowing gets some national exposure. I've always wondered, is there a pro league, or is rowing kind of one of those things where you're in it, and if you want to get to the highest level, that's the Olympics, that's the premier level that every rower strives to be at?
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's nothing like the MLB or the NFL for rowing, um, which is hard, but we do have national teams. So they're broken up by age category, and then a lot of them are based off of race results and development camps and invitations to those camps, as well as applications. So in rowing, a really, really big thing is the rowing machine, right? So a lot of people use it at the gym, and for people, that's just something they use to work out for 10, 15 minutes. But when you're actually participating in the sport of rowing, a lot of athletes will spend over an hour a day on the machine and just putting in meters and working on form and working on strength. And for being a part of these national teams and working towards the dream of the Olympics, you have to have fast times on that machine. So normally you'll submit a 2,000 meter piece, which is, if you talk to any rower, that's like your basic. If you are like, oh, are you good? What's your 2K? That's the question that you'll get asked by a lot of people who know stuff about rowing.
Gotcha.
Sometimes you'll maybe submit a 5K, you'll submit a Watts test. But that rowing machine is a crucial part to being a part of any of these national teams and eventually making it to the Olympics. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I appreciate you explaining this to me because I don't know much about rowing at all. So I'm very fascinated with like, that's cool to know what like the standard, I guess, is for, the races. So is every race that you compete in always 2,000 meters?
So in the fall, the majority of the time it's 5,000 meters.
Okay.
So there'll be long, winding courses, normally rivers, and they won't be at as fast as a stroke rate. So the way we determine what a stroke rate is, it's how many strokes that you take per minute. So
Gotcha.
when you're in the fall and you're doing your long distance pieces, it's pretty comparable to running. So normally 5Ks take a decent runner 20 so minutes maybe ish. So yeah, 5Ks will take 18 to 20 minutes maybe. It's at our lower stroke rate. It's more of a cardio piece. And then the spring, when you're doing your sprint races and your main championship season, that's all 2,000 meters. So that's at a higher stroke rate. So you take more strokes per minute because you're going faster, but it's also a lesser distance.
Gotcha. So I assume in high school you were rowing on the Hudson River. That would make most sense.
I rode on the Long Island Sound, but it was right
Okay.
there.
Gotcha. That was just my assumption. Where do you row at college? Where is that?
Row on the St. Joseph's River in South
Nice.
Bend, which is a great place to row because in high school, rowing on the Sound, there was boat traffic, there was jet skis, there was party boats, there were commercial fishermen, there were barges, there was all this.
Oh,
At college, it's awesome because it's just us and the occasional fisherman.
that's awesome.
There's
I
not a
never thought about that, the possibility of like other people being out there interfering with the whole thing.
there's not a wake. Occasionally there's some wind and you're like, oh, this stinks, but nothing like it was in high school where we'd get swamped, we'd get whitecaps, we'd get jet skis doing donuts around us.
That's
So
crazy.
we're really lucky at school to have a very protected body of water where the majority of days we can go out on the water, which
That's
is
awesome.
like every other place. So it's awesome.
Wow. So before I ask you a little more about Notre Dame, I want to know what about rowing. So you said, you started and you fell in love with it. What about it? What did you fall in love with about the sport? What was it? The people? Was it, just like the sport itself?
So my high school coach used to say that rowing is the ultimate team sport, right? So some people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But when you think about it, in every other sport, if you're standing out, you're normally the best player, right? So if you're playing basketball and you're hitting every shot and you're standing out and everyone's like, wow, that kid's really good, you're normally the best player. When you're playing soccer, you're scoring all the goals. Everyone's like, wow, that kid's standing out, therefore they are the best player, right? But in rowing, if you're in a team boat and you're standing out, you're doing it wrong.
Mm,
Which, yeah, is also
I
very
like that.
yeah. So what I love the most was the camaraderie and the team and the we're all working for the same goal aspect. Because in a lot of other sports, you can get really intercompetitive between your teammates, fighting for spots and fighting for positions and who gets the ball and who gets to score the winning goal. And I like that too. I played basketball forever and that was awesome. And it's not like you're competitive with your teammates while you're rowing. But in the end, if you're put in a boat with 7 other girls, 3 other girls, that's that. And you have to get over whatever differences you guys have and work towards the same goal, which I loved personally. And it's just so fun to go so fast. And you're looking at the people next to you, and you're not technically supposed to turn your head, but you really can't help but turn your head a little bit and look out at the other boats and see where you are. And you're racing so fast. And in every other sport I played, obviously I was trying my hardest, right? But in rowing, I've broken through a lot of barriers that I thought I would never get to and pushed myself so hard and gone to places that I didn't think were possible. And I was like, wow, I just worked so hard. I can't even stand up, but this feels so awesome. And in no other sport did I ever feel like that. So I
What
think that's another thing that really.
what kind of barriers? Like mental barriers, physical barriers,
Yeah.
both? Like,
So rowing, as much as it is a team sport, it's very individual because if you're not pushing your hardest, your teammates know. And then they don't really want to row with you because you are giving your all. So why shouldn't the girl in front of you be giving your all, right?
totally.
So for me, it's very mental because when you're in pain, obviously you don't want to be in pain, right? You want to stop, you want to lessen pressure, but it's such a mental game that you play with yourself where it's like, I can keep going. Yes, I'm in pain, but I can keep pushing. So another thing my high school coach used to say, I'll probably quote him a lot, is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because the more uncomfortable you are, normally the faster that you're going.
That's awesome. It sounds like this high school coach had like a big influence on your whole career with rowing and where you wanted to go with it.
Yeah, so my high school team when I first joined was only 12 varsity girls. So we used to joke around and call it City Island private lessons. You wanted
That's funny.
them and you said, hey, me and Evan are gonna take out a double this morning. Is that okay? Can you come coach us? You'd be like, sure, come on down. I would text him and be like, hey, I'm on break. Me and Evan want to come take out a boat. He'd be like, great, come whenever you want. I'll be there. Right. So he was very, very influential and taught me a lot of the things I know about the sport of rowing. Obviously, that's where I started rowing. So I learned a lot from him. And he coached so many phenomenal athletes before me, so many girls who went on to do amazing things. So it was a really awesome place to learn how to row.
That's awesome. So I want to get into, Notre Dame a little bit. So tell me about, when you were in high school, your decision that went into Notre Dame. Tell me about some of the other options, you had on the table, any other schools you were seriously considering, but ultimately why Notre Dame?
Yeah. So when I answer this question, I normally start with just talking about how thankful that I was given the opportunity to have my pick of colleges, because there are a lot of people who are not that lucky. And I think about it a lot that I am truly so lucky that I got to say, no, no, thank you. I don't want to go to your phenomenal institution. I'd rather go here. Right. So
100%.
for me, when I first started rowing, that wasn't really even a thought in my brain. I was like, I'm going to row. This is going to be great. I love to work out. I love to be athletic. And when it comes time for college, I'll figure that out. I'll go through the application process and it is what it is. Right. Um, and then, so I started rowing sophomore year of high school, going into my sophomore year, and recruiting starts junior year. So it was a pretty fast turnaround for me. And it was something that I had to make decisions on very quickly, because I talked to my high school coach and he was like, I think that you are good enough to pursue this in college if you are serious about it. If that is a decision that you make with your family and yourself, that this is something that you really want to pursue, I can help you. And I think you can be phenomenal. So another thing I always say about recruiting is that if you're not 110% in it, don't do it.
Right.
Because it will be a grueling process depending on what sport you play, but it's basically an interview process, right? So they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. It's where you want to spend your next 4 years. So I had a lot of great options, and I'm so thankful that I got the opportunity to speak to all of these coaches. And there are some that I still occasionally see and will say hi to at races and at scrimmages and stuff, just because they truly had an impact on my life and they're great people. All of the people that I interacted with were amazing. I took a lot of official visits. For those of you who don't know, or when the school pays for you to come out and visit, you stay with a girl on the team or a guy on the team, you see what life is truly like for an athlete at that university. And I think that's an amazing experience, because it really factors into your decision, because you get to see a day in the life of an athlete at these schools. So Notre Dame for me ended up being the big winner. It's a phenomenal place. I tell everybody who asks me it's the best place in the entire world. I truly liked that I could be both an athlete and a regular student, and that being an athlete wasn't my only identity. Because there are a lot of schools where you go where you have athlete only dining halls, you have athlete only dorms, you only have athlete friends that are on your team or who play sports, and that's that. And a lot of people love that, and that's great for a lot of people. But for me, I wanted to have my athlete friends, have my teammates, but also have people and friends and relationships with people who were different than me and had different interests. So that was a big thing at Notre Dame. So we have no just athlete dining hall, no athlete dorm, that whole thing. You have random roommates freshman year. You live in the dorms with an athlete, without an athlete, that's your choice. And you eat at the dining hall with everybody else. You're in classes with everybody else. And that was something that I really looked at, and I really, really enjoyed that. Another thing that was really, really important to me was the people on the team. And the more and more time I spent with them, the more and more time I was like, I could really see myself fitting in with these girls. They're so welcoming. They're so inviting. Any question I have, they said to me, please, please ask. We'll answer. Honest, total honesty, which is really important, because you have some people who will be like, I'm just going to sell the school to you no matter what.
Sure.
And that's sometimes hard. But the girls were like, we will tell you our honest opinions. We will answer anything you have to answer. Here's what our life is like. And if it's not for you, that's okay, but we would love to have you, which was also really important for me, because they admitted that not everybody chooses Notre Dame. And just because they love it so much doesn't mean the person they're talking to will. So that was also a big thing for me. And then finally, the coaching staff was a huge, huge part of my decision. We have 4 coaches. We have our head coach, we have an associate coach, head coach, and then we have 2 assistants. And then we have our like traveling boat guy who comes with us, who's not technically a coach, but he feels like one because he's always there with us and we all love them. So as obviously, you as an athlete, you spend a lot of time with your coaches, and they're a pretty influential part of your experience at school, considering they make a lot of decisions, right?
Sure.
So for me, what really stuck out to me was the fact that they treated me like a real person. So on holidays, they text me, hey, Annaliese, Merry Christmas. Tell your family we say hello and wish them health in the new year, just stuff like that. Hey,
Yeah.
Annaliese, I know it's probably 2K season for you. I know you have this race coming up. I know you are having hard practices. Just want to let you know that we're wishing you luck and we'll be watching and we'll be cheering for you. Just like small things like that, that realistically you don't think makes that much of a difference. But when you're getting recruited, it really does. So when I went on my official, Notre Dame was my first official. And I took all 5 of them. I took Notre Dame first in early September. I didn't make my decision until October. So normally that's quite the waiting process for them the whole time. Hey, just want to let you know we're still here. Your spot's still here. We would love to have you. Take the rest of your officials, please. Don't feel stressed. If you have any more questions, call us. We'll talk to your parents if they have them. Just reach out and let us know. And for me, that was really, really important to me that they were there for me, not only as a student athlete, but also as a real, genuine person.
That's awesome. That's really great. So, they made it a lot easier for you clearly, which is awesome. Before I get to my next question, I was, kind of wondering, looking back to, some of the stuff I was asking before it kind of, came to me. I'm curious, was it ever hard for you? Like, obviously the commute you had in high school was, super, you had to be super committed. And then obviously as a college, Division I athlete, you have to be super committed. Was it ever hard for you to like, like people are hanging out wherever, like people are doing what was it ever hard for you to like miss out on things and like know that you had to be 110% committed and like see, the big goal ahead? Because a lot of like high school athletes have a hard time seeing the big goal and just want to, go out with friends and do stuff. Was that ever a challenge that you faced, or was it always just like eye on the prize for you?
No. That was a really big struggle for me, especially in high school. I was the only person in our town that was rowing. So there was no one that I could truly relate to when I was talking about these things, or when I came to school in my sweaty practice clothes, or when I had to leave things early, when I couldn't hang out, or when I couldn't go away with my friends because I was racing that weekend, things like that. It was really a big struggle for me. Just because it was just me and no one truly understood what I was doing.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a 15, 16-year-old kid, all you want to do is hang out with your friends and do what all the cool kids are doing. And
That's why I asked, because I feel like if I was in that position, I would like, there's always like that, kind of feeling, I feel like, where it's like, I want to do everything. How do you do everything? And it's sometimes hard and you have to make different sacrifices. So I
there were a
figured it
lot
was
of
worth
days
asking.
where I'd be at home, my friends would be out, I'd have practice in the morning, I'd have a race the next day, I'd miss something because I'd be away racing, and I would just sob and be so upset. And my mom would be like, just, you love what you're doing. And I'd be like, I know I love what I'm doing. I just want to hang out. Which is totally understandable because I'm 15, 16 years old. Like, that's just what you wanted to do.
Right. As a young kid, I was thinking that has to be hard.
Yeah. But now I look back and I was like, did I really miss something so huge by not hanging out with my friends one night?
No, you missed nothing realistically,
No.
but
And I love what I'm doing. And obviously it got me to places I never thought would be imaginable. So there's that plus, but just it genuinely makes me happy. So at some point I really sat down and thought to myself, am I really making sacrifices? No, I truly enjoy this. This is what I want to be doing. And my teammates are some of my best friends also. So it's not like I'm miserable and not hanging out with anybody I want to be with and all that. And at some point I said to myself, this is worth it. You love what you're doing. You're having a blast and you're
right.
having so many experiences and doing so many things and going to so many places that a lot of kids don't have the opportunity to. And you're genuinely lucky. So you have to think about that instead of oh, my friends are going to this party. I really wish I was going. And in
Right.
high school, in college, it's different because I live with one of my best friends and she's also one of my teammates. So I have 6 roommates total, but only 2 of us are athletes.
Gotcha.
Right. So I love that because I get to be friends. Like I was saying, I get to be friends with people who don't play sports. I get to broaden my horizons, and all of my roommates are amazing people. They really are. They're truly great people. But if me and my teammate are dry, or we can't go out, or we have a race, or we're missing something big, it's okay because we're doing it together.
Totally.
Where it's not like all of my friends are going out, I'm really upset. It's, oh, the 2 of us we'll just stay in, we'll watch a movie. You guys have fun. Let us know how it goes. but this is just what our life is. And at some point, it's like if you have to stay in on one Friday night, it's not going to kill you.
Right, of course. A lot of people struggle, a lot of, young athletes struggle to see that side of it. So I figured it was worth asking because a lot of people do have like a lot of, issues with that and really want to try to do everything. So I figured it was worth asking how your experience was with that.
It's not easy, but
Yeah, of
you,
course.
once you do it and then you look back, you realize that everything was really worth it.
Of course, you have to look at the bigger picture. So just the last few questions I have, just walk me through a quick, typical day as a Notre Dame rower, what a day looks like for you.
Yeah, so I know rowing is really notorious for having really early wake ups and stuff, but our coaches really prioritize academics at Notre Dame, which was another really important thing for me. Because, like I said earlier, there is no pro rowing. I'm not going to get drafted into the NBA. I'm not going to the NFL. When I graduate, um, I I have to use my brain. I have to get a job, and that's why I'm going to college in the first place, obviously, which is why the majority of people do. But it's not like I'm going to get drafted for my sport, right?
Mhm.
So at school, they really do prioritize academics, which is awesome. We have a lot of aid. We have tutors and we have academic advisors and we have people helping us plan our classes. And if I have a question, I can just text my advisor and be like, hey, I'm confused about the difference between these two classes. Can you help me? And it's response like that instead of going through like guidance and advisors and all that stuff at school. Um, so we only left twice a week. It's in the mornings, which is I have to wake up at 6:30 twice a week, but you get over it. So Tuesday, Thursday mornings, we have left around 7, and then every other practice normally, except for weekends, are in the afternoon. So normally they tell you to schedule your classes from a 9 to 3 p.m. block, and then leave earlier in the morning and leave the afternoons open for practice times. So I'll schedule my 3 to 4 classes a day between 9 and 3. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we'll have lift in the morning before that, shower in the locker room, go to class. You have maybe 3 classes. You find some time to get lunch in there, you go to your classes. And then normally I try to finish before 3 because I don't like to rush in the locker room. But if there's a class you have to take and it ends at 3, that's the way it is.
Right.
And also really, really welcoming about if there's a class that is required for your major and you have to take it and the only time is 4:30 to 7, then you're going to take it and you're just going to do your practice at a different time during the day. You're going to sit on the erg for an hour and a half, do the workout. You're still going to do it, but you're going to prioritize your school and you prioritize your education and you're going to take that class.
Gotcha.
Right? Which is another awesome thing. But yeah, so you take classes till around 3 o'clock and then practice is normally 4:30 to 6:30 or 4 to 6:30, depending on the day. And then you're done. You go home, shower, do your homework, eat dinner in whatever order you choose to do so. And then you wake up and do it again the next day. And then Saturdays we'll normally do our long practices. So those are normally 9 to 1 ish, depending.
That's pretty long.
Yeah, we'll do a lot of work on the weekends. And then Sunday afternoons we'll do practice from 3 to 5 maybe, because NCAA regulations, you have to have 1 day off a week. So for our coaches, they thought realistically what would be best for us as students would to have a day in the week off. So we have every Wednesday off. That's our NCAA classified day off.
Gotcha.
Because people work on Wednesdays, right? So you'll have time to go to office hours. You'll have time to meet with advisors. You'll have time to meet with professors. They'll be on campus and they'll be at school. So you have that Wednesday to catch up on your work, to catch up on your meetings, and to meet with professors and such that you wouldn't be able to meet with, let's say, on a Sunday if they gave us a Sunday off.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So wrapping up things, my last question for you that I have is, we ask a lot of our guests this, if there was a younger girl who wanted to row Division 1 and, do something similar to what you're doing, what's one piece of advice that you'd give them to accomplish that goal?
Probably it would have to be to stay internal. There will be a lot of people that say a lot of things and have a lot of opinions on how you should live your life and what you should do. But in the end, it's your life and you have to live it. And if it's something that you really love and it's something that really matters to you, then you should pursue whatever you want to do.
That's a good answer. I like that answer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, Annaliese. It was a real pleasure having you on the show today. It was great to learn a little bit about you and what you're doing right now. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I had fun. This is great.
Great. Yes, very fun. All right. Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the rest of our channel and subscribe. Make sure to follow our Instagram and maybe consider subscribing on Patreon for our bonus content. You can only find it there. I promise it will be well worth it. Thanks.